and we can get started. It's the Pirate Day thing today, so I was at Booty Bay doing what little I can, all of the good stuff you actually need to have done, the Bloodsail Buccaneers type rep, afternoon Mastex or evening or wherever you are. And I've never done that. It's not very Paladin-like to be on the side of pirates, so I couldn't do that. But I could at least do the rare. There's a rare shark in Booty Bay, which drops a toy. Unfortunately, it took me rather a long time to get it, because it is. So you can go to Booty Bay and get a few bits and pieces. There, as I say, there's a rare spawn shark. Now it says if you look it up on Wowhead, it spawns every half hour. Fortunately, it seems to be every quarter of an hour. I don't understand why it was a really long time. But the annoying thing is I was waiting for it, and then a Horde Demon Hunter attacked me, and I was beating him up and he just ran away. I don't know why I bothered with it. Do you need rep for the parrot? I don't. If there's a permanent parrot, I don't know. Like, you can buy the parrots from the captain. But I don't know how long it lasts, if at all. Like PT. I don't know if it gets consumed when you use it. Well, let's use it and find out. Yeah, it gets consumed when you use it. So, and it doesn't actually seem to be following me in any real sense of the term. Oh no, it's on my shoulder. Okay, that's fine. But, oh, you can't see it. I'll just close my game down anyway. So yeah, so the demon, and he ran away, and then the shark spawned, and as I was about to get over to it and just at least put a judgment on it to tag it, a load of other Horde just mugged me. I thought, how annoying. So I had to corpse run back, got to wait for this thing. I'm thinking it's going to be half an hour, and so I'm waiting around. Then I saw that Demon Hunter causing trouble again. I thought, well, at least I can get my revenge on him. And I went to kill him. No, it's called PT, the parrot. I went to go and kill this Demon Hunter. And he did the same thing again. He just ran away. As soon as he was about to die, he just ran away. And I thought, this is really annoying. And I don't know why. And then I got mugged by a load of Horde again. And I'm thinking, I don't know why I'm doing this. I'm in water. Like, normally, Demon Hunters are pretty good at getting away. But normally I can get them. I can stop them getting away. But when I'm in water, I've got no chance. If someone moves away from me in water, there's nothing I can do. And I don't know why I was so stupid. So I just had to sit there in my flying machine and wait. And actually did manage to get some damage on it. But couldn't actually get... You know how it is in water when you're trying to loot the thing you've killed, a load of people have killed. And I'm going up and down and I'm trying to work out which direction I need to move to so that I can get in looting range of it. Oh, thank you, 8 Fat Boy. And I was killed while I was trying to do that. So I had to corpse run for a third time just to get back and loot the bloody shark. This toy had better be worth it. All it does is call out some pirate-themed insults. As far as I can tell, that's what it does. But I haven't tried it out yet. I just thought, right, I was so irritated at this point, I just need to go to Argus and find some... I just did a few world quests just to finish off there. So there we go. So that's where I want now. I'll finish those off later on tonight. But yet again, really loathing being on a PvP server. But yeah, I should have known better than to try and not so much pick a fight, because he picks a fight on me, but engage in any sort of PvP in water, because, you know, people can get away, people can get to me, and I can't. I'm just flailing about like an idiot. So anyway, so what should we talk about today? So we've got the, you know, everything is out now for 7.3, barring the raid, of course, including the Netherlight Crucible. How have people done with their traits? Have they got any nice ones or not so nice ones? It was nearly... I don't pick fights. I usually, as I say, I'm fine. You know, I very rarely come a cropper in them. But as I say, water is just not a good terrain to be having a fight with. I'm sure there's any number of things. Hi, Vril. There's any number of things that might have helped me, but no. I mean, a demon hunter anyway, even on land, has a good chance of getting away from you. That's all. I don't really know what you can sort of do about that. But I'll just have to suck it up now. I'll just remember their name. If I see them on Argus, then I will kill them. And they will not get away from me because I will stun them, and that'll be the end of them. And I didn't take the names of everyone else because they, to be fair, they were probably just doing what I would have done and thought that I was causing trouble and I just mugged in, which is probably what I would do at the time. I've had to go back onto my rogue a little bit as well. We've double horse. Horse does nothing in water. I'm in water. I can't do anything. He can just jump and blade rush, fell rush. Behave yourself, and he's off. Gone. You can do it twice, and that's it. Sayonara. See you later. But on land, different matter. On land, I can slow them down. Yeah, sure, they can get a fell rush off, but you know, I can. Yeah, horsey after them, put me slow on them, get stun them, and just batter them. But yeah. So anyway, so I've got to do the rogue again. Got back onto it because one of our rogues, they're a little unreliable anyway, but one of our rogues said that they're having too much with work, so they're going to be a bit... They said they're sort of basically quitting the game, at least for the short term. But they'll be about, you know, they're not just leaving. People in our guild are usually pretty good about that. They'll hang around and raid when they can. But nonetheless, it means just at the point at which we actually need multiple rogues. I mean, remember, you might not know, one of our boomkins has actually gone on his rogue to do Avatar. Now, I had a rogue. There was some suggestion maybe I could do it. I'd be a lot more use on my rogue, even though I would do less damage. At least for the soaking, I could at least just soak if I did very little damage even. Because as each week goes by, you're presumably going to need less and less damage as a raid anyway. But I hadn't done anything like for 2 weeks. I hadn't even started the Argus stuff. So I thought, oh, I need to go back on it to try and get it up. Because it's just below the amount of health needed to be able to soak every touch of Sargeras. So I'm going to have to go back onto my rogue and do some more stuff on it. And it's only on like 54 artifact level as well. So I won't be able to get anything on the... I mean, you know, on the Netherlight Crucible, all I can get is the item level. And I'm definitely, and I haven't done this yet, I am definitely going to have to make myself the tell me when bars. Even for assassination, just so that I know what's going on. Because I say I kept not doing that, and it didn't really matter for when I was just doing LFR. But then when we got dragged through Mythic to try and get some loot, and then nothing dropped and none of the coins worked, which was annoying. I'd forgotten to do it, so I was making a right mess of it. Although still did more damage than some people on the boss, which was rather annoying. But there you go. And we're just that's it. That's 7.3 is all out now. It's really good. We're not doing one of these stupid things where every week a rubbish quest comes out and we're just waiting for, you know, the small number of good quests to come out. It's all done now. We've done it. We can just carry on until I get exalted. I'm not exalted yet. As soon as I am exalted, those world quests can go screw themselves. I'll only do the ones... I mean, they do actually... The ones that give AP give a good amount of AP, so obviously they have to be done. Broken Shore doing much less now because the war supplies don't really give you very much AP, and they don't give anything else. So I only now do the ones that give a good amount of AP. Yes, that's... I mean, they were trying to be funny with that one. There's been two sort of variations on a joke on the shards from WoD in it. Like Apexis crystals. But there you go, hi Mahal. But, well, I still have to do that with some characters. I don't think I've not done that with my rogue even. But the only way now to get the nether shards is you either get lucky with that imp with the coin, or you just have to do normal invasions. Someone was actually asking, do you think they should have done some sort of storyline involving the invasions on Argus? I haven't responded yet. Probably leave it for the mailbox. But I think my response to that one would be no, because they sort of did a storyline with the ones on the Broken Isles. And the consequence of that is that it just means it takes you longer. Whereas at least the invasions on Argus, you go in the portal, you kill a load of stuff, and you come out of the portal with some AP and rep, which is all you actually went in there for anyway. Yeah, unfortunately, yeah, there are... I mean, you have to do the world quest to be able to get exalted. Well, I need to get exalted, of course. We are going to need the... Although, apparently, I'm not even going to need my stock of augment runes. I sort of knew that, although I'm human, so you get a bit of benefit from that on the rep. Because I can't do all the world quests. There's some days when I can clear out the world quests, and there's many days when I can't. And I sort of knew that I would be behind with the rep. And I was suggesting that we made the augment runes compulsory from the next reset, i.e. tomorrow. But then the other officers sort of came to the conclusion, well, we haven't actually told everyone else yet, so we can't spring it on them now. So we're going to make it the following week, which means that even I will be exalted by then. So, because I'd planned on not being ready for when that happened, but having my own stock of augment runes, so I could still just use the consumable ones until I would expect to get exalted by the weekend. So I'm not even going to need my stock of augment runes now. Because, yeah, maybe I'll just save them for my rogue. Average, yeah, okay. I mean, I got fairly average traits. I got nothing really to complain about. I was, I mean, this time last week, I sort of knew it was coming because I'd had some phenomenally good luck on the PTR when I copied another character on the day before. So I knew that when it went live, it would just be... I mean, it was media. I mean, it could have been worse. It could have been... You know, I could have had very bad traits. I did get very bad traits. I got, you know, average traits, which is better than crap traits, I suppose. But not as good as great ones. So on the Crucible topic, you saw Shadowbind was getting altered to appropriately scale with player crit rating. The simming, I am almost certain would take into account the changes that were... Because there were changes literally announced like last Monday, the day before it was going live in North America. And at the time on the Retribution Paladin Discord at any rate, or the Paladin Discord, there was... I know the people who had done the sims were posting them for the theory crafters to check out before they posted it publicly. And they knew that changes had been made. So I imagine that those ones would have been updated. Now, if there's been a change since that I don't know about, because I've not seen any changes since, then I don't know. But I think there were changes like last Monday. There's not been any changes since, have there? There's a hotfix on the 16th. Oh, heck, am I behind? Let's have a look. What's that? Hotfixes, 16th. If that's the case, then I doubt that the ones on any Discord are up to date. But they may be in Simcraft. The Netherlight Crucible trait Shadowbind will now correctly benefit. Oh no, actually that sounds like a bug fix, so that's probably still fine. Yeah, if it's a bug fix, I'm sure it will be fine. Because it'll have been simmed, assume, you know, according to how it's supposed to work. So I think it's fine. You're doing your Spanish? Okay. Hasta la vista. But, no, I think that'll be okay. What other changes have they made? It's just bug fixes, isn't it? They haven't actually changed anything, really. The blood visual for Dread Sharks has been improved on Mythic difficulty on Mistress Sassine. Burden of Pain now counts damage after absorption. I don't care about any of those. So we'll leave those alone. No interest to me at all. I'm I mean, at the moment where we are now, I'm just sort of waiting, even though it's going to be ages. I'm just sort of waiting for BlizzCon now. I just want to find out what's in the next expansion. I'm more interested in what's in the next expansion than the next patch, because the next patch, there's going to be something. I don't know whether... I don't know what the focus is going to be from Blizzard. So I don't know whether they're just going to try to push the storyline to lead into the next expansion, or are they going to use it... Are they going to build on what's happened in Legion? Is it going to be a patch that's really almost like the new expansion coming early, or is it a patch to do with now? Because they could do a clear up on Argus. They could just extend Argus, couldn't they, and do new zones on Argus. Although, if they did that, I am going to... I think if they were to try and expand on Argus for the remaining of Legion, there's going to be many upset people, because I think there's a lot of people obviously not happy that flying's not on Argus. I've already done that one to death. But I think it will. The cries will just become ever louder, because it really will be then a case that it's like you've only just allowed us flying, then we're going to Argus where there's no flying, and then we're staying there for the rest of Legion. So I'm thinking maybe, unless of course they wish to risk that upset, that whatever is the next patch is going to be somewhere back on the Broken Isles. I'm not sure what. Like I've said before, there's potentially scope for an extension. I mean, I suppose maybe, I was thinking High Mountain, because there's quite a few storylines in High Mountain that you could pick up again. But maybe, I don't know, what do you think? Maybe Val Shirar, because you know, we started off with Emerald Nightmare type stuff, and that went into, you know, and then that wasn't really directly to do with the Legion. But if the next expansion is Old Godsey, then, you know, maybe coming back to the Emerald Nightmare type storyline makes sense for reading into that. Reddit predicted a Neltharian's Lair area raid. Yeah, I mean, that's... I mean, they could. Because, I mean, this is what I was thinking with High Mountain, you see. Because the Neltharion bit in High Mountain, where you do the Huln High Mountain quest line, it almost seems like they didn't have to do a lot with Deathwing in there. So I was thinking that maybe they continue that storyline. Oh, I see, Mahal. Oh, I hadn't noticed that. I didn't realise that. A map next to our mission board. Is that right? I'm going to have a look. Of course, the thing is as well, I mean, we've had these situations before, haven't we, where something has been planned and then pulled. Though Legion seems to be an expansion where that's probably less likely to happen, because they're making sure that they do bring out this content. They're not likely to abandon projects, because abandoned projects, when it comes to content, usually mean not a replacement of content, but the no content at all. And obviously they're keen for that not to be a thing. Hang on, let's put... Is that going to work? Let's put this back up there. I mean, it certainly seems plausible to me. But I certainly had not noticed anything of that nature. So this is in the Paladin Order Hall, is it? next to the mission board. So, okay, Tomb of Sargeras, Trials of Valor, Emerald Nightmare. Yeah, well, I'm seeing here. I can certainly see here something, definitely. There's definitely marks there where you would expect Tomb of Sargeras to be. If you can... Hold on. Shall I... I don't want to spoil the overall layout. Can't really zoom in on this either. Can I? But you can sort of see on this map up here. Hold on a minute. Let's stop being stupid here. Let's just get an image from this. But yeah, I can see what you're talking about. Very interesting. Right, so let's source media file. What do I do with it? There we go. There we go. Stick that there. So we've got, let's put this back over here. Does my cursor show up when I wave it around randomly? I don't think it does it? Never mind. You can see it anyway, can't you? So in the top left, where you've got Val'sharah, you can see a cross. Okay, round up. I'm not going to swear to these being geographically accurate, but you know, there's a cross roughly where you'd expect Emerald Nightmare to be, and then down in Suramar you've got a cross where. See that cross though? That's not where Suramar is though. That's the problem, or is it? Oh no, it is. No, it is. No, it is. Ignore me. So that's where. So that's where Nighthold is. In Stormheim, you've got one roughly where Trial of Valor would be. You've got one in the Broken Shore where Tomb of Sargeras is, in the north of the Broken Shore. And then, yes, you have one plonked right in the middle of High Mountain. Now, is Neltharion... My only query with that would be... Again, it might be that it's not intended to be geographically accurate. That cross in High Mountain is further north, a lot further north than Neltharion's lair. And in relation to what appears to be a river coming from Stormheim in it, also indicates that it's not Neltharion's lair, but it is High Mountain. But then again, how geographically accurate are the other ones? I'm gonna let me just shove that down there. Where can I shove that? I'll just make it a bit smaller and shove it down there. So if we look, because I can magnify this, can't I? Oh, all sorts of mucking about. It's just as well I have multiple monitors now. Zoomy zoom. So Neltharion's lair's down here. Now that... Oh, I don't know though. Oh no, hang on. I think it's just geographically inaccurate, isn't it? The map of High Mountain. Because actually that river running from Stormheim is over here. Ah. Okay, could be. Val'sharah. Yeah, that's round about where Emerald Nightmare would be. Stormheim. Yes, that's... Again, if we sort of say it's geographically inaccurate, it's on the right land bit, the land mass. It's on the right bit there. And Suramar, yeah, Suramar City down there. So yeah, it's there are 2 Neltharions locations on the map too. Well, I was thinking that High Mountain would definitely be a possibility because there are multiple storylines, and I think the Neltharion storyline is one of them that could certainly be continued because it never really felt like it finished, and this is very interesting. I think I think that could be right. I need to look at Reddit more often. Some good stuff comes up on that sometimes. It's just most of the time it's a load of crap, but sometimes, every now and then, someone says something very, very cunning. And this will have been here all expansion as well, wouldn't it? This map staring me in the face. I've paid no attention to. Well, let's just... hold on, what's going on? Let's get rid of the game there then. Was it quite a lot? Oh, it was a long time ago. Okay. I mean, some people are like that, aren't they? They just... I should move that down there. You know, they go through every inch of everything, don't they? And look for hidden clues. I'm just having a think if there's anything else on this map I want to now look at. The arrow, I'm just thinking if the arrows coming in mean they don't mean anything really, do they? So the next raid may be an Neltharion's lair. Or it'll have to be called something different, of course. The next question would be... Obviously, though, there's not a raid portal, otherwise that would be a dead giveaway. But it would be a case of thinking where the entrance to it would be. I might have to give some thought to that. I may also have to look up that Reddit post as well and have a little think about it. Well, I don't think there is anything like that raid on the map. Because again, that would be too much of a giveaway. And no one is saying with any degree of certainty. The end quest for the zone. Where we go into the Neltharion's Lair dungeon, of course, is where the mountain is sort of split open, and then there's that solo quest where we go through with Mailer and Ebonhorn, and that just comes out of the mountain. But what you do when you're on that solo quest thing is you go through a load of Titan gates, don't you? Way gates. Maybe there's a Titan way gate to it. Maybe it's that geographically the raid isn't exactly... Whoops, where am I pointing there? Don't matter where I'm pointing, you can't see the cursor. Oh, Neltharion's Vault. Okay. Right. I'm just having a look on the map. You must have to be there physically, because it's not showing up on the actual in-game map. But never mind. It might be there when you actually go to the right area. I mean, we were sort of in Neltharion's Vault, but obviously they're going to extend it, aren't they? because that's where we did our solo quest. To when we followed, like, went through those echoes where it had Holm getting the hammer of Khazragoth or whatever it's called. Okay, well, all right, there we go. Not much we can do on that one now. So we'll just have to. I'll just have to have a muse over that, and maybe do a vlog on that when I've had a little think about how I think it might link up. But that would make an awful lot of sense for me, because, like I said, it's back on the Broken Isles. It's. Hi, Pinky Tiger. I'm okay, thank you. Ready to do with Neltharian's Lair? Well, you know, it's like this map here, as Mahal has pointed out. Apparently, there was a Reddit post pointing this out. I never saw it. Just to bring everyone up to speed really quickly, you can see on this map of the Broken Isles crosses at every location of a raid. And then there's also one near Neltharian's Lair. So I would consider that pretty strong evidence. We know there's sort of another raid coming. We know it's not going to be a big raid, and it wouldn't make sense for it to be a big raid. I don't think it could contain Neltharion himself, of course, seeing as we beat his toenails up a few years ago. So what would be in it? Or would it be sort of defeating some shade of Neltharion type thing? But it'd only be a few bosses. We're expecting one of a few bosses. Like I was saying, don't like the idea. I don't think they would do another Argus raid. Or even extend Argus. Because, you know, it would be taking the mickey, I think. It would absolutely be taking the mickey to have a raid where... Or, sorry, to have a situation where you don't have flying. They say, don't worry, it's going to come halfway through the expansion. Halfway through the expansion, they give us flying. And then literally a month later, they say, right, we're off to this new zone now where there's no flying. And if they were to just keep that for the rest of the expansion, that would be no. They wouldn't be able to justify that at all. So back to the Broken Isles, in which case, the only two for my money would have been Val Shirar because of the Emerald Nightmare link. And that could lead into Old Gods' stuff for the next one. Or, as like is now looking likely, taking the mickey would be, it means, like, I don't know, taking the piss, some people would say. Like, to push someone's good nature. So yeah, so Neltharian's Lair is another one. It's a storyline from High Mountain that wasn't really... I don't think it refers to Mickey Mouse. Oh, thank you, Reddit. Reddit. But it ticks a lot of boxes, doesn't it? I'm becoming more convinced by the moment now when I look at it. But anyway, oh, that's it. Well, we'll go on to other topics now, I think, because I can't really say anything more about that moment unless anyone else has got anything to add into it. I mean, I'm looking 2 raids ahead here. We haven't even had Antorus out. I don't even know what's going on. Well, I haven't even finished Tomb of Sargeras. I'm still stuck on the Broken Isles. I haven't even gone to Argus officially, my character, yet. Because, yeah, I'm not ready for Antorus yet. We've got about 2 months. At which point you've got to think there's going to be another significant raft of nerfs. So we have to hope we didn't get Odin return to Ulduar. Yeah, but I mean, characters do stuff all the time, don't they? They don't necessarily follow up on those storylines. Odin, of course, is going to go back to Ulduar storyline-wise because he's been trapped up in the halls of Valor for so long. He's you know, when you've been imprisoned, like under house arrest for like years or whatever, when you're suddenly allowed to go free, you don't go, okay, that's great, I'm just going to stay here though because I'm comfortable. You do want to go exploring, and that's an obvious place for him to go. But it doesn't necessarily mean it's going to form part of any sort of storyline. Apart from, I mean, the Keepers themselves should play some part because ultimately the Keepers were created to battle the old gods and their minions. So I was thinking maybe more of a return of Ra-Den making a much more serious contribution. Well, I mean, the thing is, though, Ulduar is all the way in the north of Azeroth. Kul Tiras is all the way in the south. So, I mean, it's possible that there might be some scenarios, you know, like the return to Ulduar we've been doing with Magni. Just hopping in, well, apparently it's the reveal of what the final raid's going to be, really. But yeah, we're just discussing, like, we're just speculating at the moment. How many artifact traits have I got now? 64. Very nearly 65. Maybe I will knock on the door of 65 by the end of tonight, and that's where I'll be with the new reset tomorrow. So, well, yeah, I mean, we fought Ra-Den, and then he just basically buggered off. He's one of those Keepers that we fought, but then turned out to be like, oh, sorry, I didn't mean to fight you. And then he went off. But he was also the leader of the Keepers. So he you know, now that he's free, he should be playing a fairly large part, you would think. Conspiracy about this hidden boss in Antorus thing. No. Someone was mentioning this in the stream, and then because they thought that Ian had said this, and then it turned out that he hadn't at all. I'd be very surprised. It's not impossible. Nothing's impossible. I would be very surprised because we know what the storyline of the new raid is, the Antorus raid. And when you can quite clearly see from the dialogue and what's been revealed in the data mined dialogue and files, you can see exactly what the storyline is. It doesn't make sense for there to be another boss after it because that would be a huge anticlimax. You know, there's nothing left to do. It's the Antorus raid closes a major storyline in the Warcraft universe, like closes it. So yeah, it of all the raid, the other thing is that. God, you give me so many ideas for vlogs here, blimey. The other thing is that there's no reason to put a secret boss in because it's quite dodgy when they do it. Like, I mean, wasn't Ra-Den the last time they did that? They've done it a few times, haven't they? Not a secret boss as such, but like an extra boss. So you had Ra-Den in Throne of Thunder. You had Sinestra, I suppose. I wasn't playing the game at the time, but I suppose that would come under that category. But those were... I think these days people would be a bit funny about them because, for example, you would probably guess that those bosses would just be in Mythic mode, wouldn't you? Well, that's going to upset non-Mythic raiders. And even if they're not, even if it's in Heroic and Mythic, then it upsets normal raiders. If it's in normal, Heroic and Mythic, then it upsets LFR raiders. And if it's in LFR raiders, well, what's the point? So I don't think philosophically they'd want to do a hidden boss, an extra boss. And also, it doesn't make sense storyline for there to be one. So that's what I'd probably say about that. But, you know, I can't say definitively there's not. Just because it doesn't make sense. There are things that don't make sense that do make it into the game. But what do the conspiracy videos say about it? Hidden phase is a different matter. Like an extra phase, that's fine. And it's almost expected, even though we don't get it all the time. It is almost expected. So you had an extra phase with Gul'dan, of course, in Nighthold. You know, there was an extra phase with Archimonde in Hellfire Citadel. So, you know, there is a history of, I mean, Garrosh and Siege of Orgrimmar, that sort of thing. There is a history of extra phases. And in fact, you know, I think they should make more use of extra phases for Mythic. But whole extra bosses, that goes against the whole reason for LFR. The whole reason for LFR was supposedly people, I'm not sure how true it was, but supposedly people complaining that they don't get to see this content, they don't get to try it out. So, well, here's LFR for people who can't be asked or don't have the time. So then to put in, and also remember in Warlords of Draenor, remember what they did to LFR in Warlords of Draenor? They said, okay, LFR's a thing, but you're not getting the same loot. You're not getting the tier bonuses. There were set bonuses, but they were pretty crap ones. They weren't the same set bonuses, which is the key thing. You're not getting the same trinkets. And then they reverted that in Legion. Now, what they said about it for Legion is, oh, well, we don't think it's really relevant anymore. It's no less relevant now than it was then. So what I suspect happened was, again, or they got the perception that a load of people who just do LFR were complaining that they weren't getting the same stuff. So I think there's a situation where, yeah, you could get away with an extra phase, but not a whole new boss. But I'd be interested to know what these videos are talking about, what their evidence for this is. But I don't think... Well, I think it's not just an entitlement thing, I think, in this case as well. Because Blizzard have often used the phrase, very particularly in Legion, that they don't... And they use this regularly now. They don't want to develop content for small sections of the community. Now, if you did an extra boss on Mythic, that's only going to be seen, realistically, by a few hundred people. Because there's only ever... about 1,000 guilds will get cutting edge, roughly. I don't know exactly the numbers, but it seems to me you get about roughly 1,000 guilds getting cutting edge in, say, Nighthold and Tomb. Obviously more got cutting edge for the other raids, but that's because they were out for longer before the cutting edge was removed, because the cutting edge for Emerald Nightmare and Trial of Valor was not removed until Tomb of Sargeras came out. So, because they were considered in the same tier as like Nighthold, but they were out for far longer. But when you look at the cutting edge for Nighthold, you know, I think it was about 1,000, and then it'll be about the same again. So they're not going to do it for that. Even recently, when someone was suggesting, "Oh, what about Mythic Plus raids?" You know, the Blizzard response to that was, "Who's that for?" You know, is it for people that have done Mythic content? And are just waiting for the next tier, in which case, one, why would they want that? They want a rest. And two, we're not going to do stuff for just a few people. So, I'm not sure, actually. It's actually interesting. There's, I mean, our rank has slipped a bit. We really needed to kill Avatar yesterday, and we didn't. We didn't even get close. I don't know how not close we got, because it's one of these things where you could easily have a really good phase one, and then as long as people keep it together and don't panic, you could kill it. Because the phase two, as long as we have a really good phase one, the phase two is relatively straightforward. Oh, sound it. Sorry. Okay. Right. Hopefully that's fixed that. I'm using my voice meter banana again, which I don't usually use for the Tuesday talk, but I use it for streaming gameplay because I have to. Right, sorry. I hate this thing. I don't know why it keeps going off sometimes. Right. Yeah, so if the only big evidence I interview with Ian, he said nothing about that. What he said was that he didn't say anything about extra boss in Taurus, or from what I could see anyway. Like, I was asking someone in stream when they were saying it, did they, because maybe I missed it, and they went back and said, actually, no, he didn't say that. So what Ian basically was talking about was another raid. He said there's not going to be another big raid, and there's not going to be a one boss raid, but that implies there's going to be another one, and we sort of can now probably say Neltharion's left. So, I can't remember what I was talking about. I forget very easily. But yeah, no, I just don't think... I don't think it fits their raiding philosophy to put in a new one, because there's like 1,000 guilds do cutting edge. You have to, by definition, get cutting edge to do the secret boss. There's 1,000 guilds do that. And some of those guilds will only do it on the last reset anyway. That doesn't give them time to do the extra boss. Now, okay, that extra boss is still there to do, you know, when the new raiders come out and Cutting Edge is no longer available. But then what's the point? You know, you've got to think to yourself, who is an extra secret boss for? It's for people that have completed Mythic. Blizzard, you know, keep saying that they don't design content for people, for a small number of people to do. So, you know, I would just say no. That's not a thing. How widespread is this belief, though? Because you're not the first person to have sort of said that to me. Is it worthwhile me doing anything on it? I don't know. Because what is it that he was supposedly said, or people think he said, that suggests that? Because I'd say I saw the interviews he did at Gamescom. Now, okay, yeah, sometimes things pass me by. I do occasionally watch these interviews, and then I read what other people have said, and I go, oh, I missed that out then. I obviously tune him out at times for some reason. But what was he supposed to have said? Well, Mahal, I'm not sure how long the Cutting Edge is intended to last, because there is like to be another raid, and if that other raid comes out, then you ask the question. So let's assume it goes like this. So Antorus comes out 7.3.5, then 7.4 comes out, and it's a new patch with new content, you know, Shadow of Neltharion, whatever. They'll not call it that, of course. They can't keep using the word shadow. And then 7.4.5, the Vault of Neltharion comes out, let's say. Now, when that 7.4.5 comes out, after that it will be the run up to the next expansion. So will they say, well, there's a new raid out, so we're going to stop the Cutting Edge on Antorus? Or will they say, well, we're just running towards the next expansion anyway, we'll just let people get it all the way up to the pre-expansion patch? Did you miss the speculation about Neltharion? Very possibly, but don't worry. I will... well, if you've got something else to add in, we can go back to it, I suppose. But I think we covered pretty much everything we could possibly know. But it's bound to be one of those things I cover now because I'm very now intrigued. I'm super intrigued, in fact. Especially as raids are my raison d'etre in this game. So anything to do with raids I'm always hugely interested in. So it is possible now that, yes, they agreed to extend the Cutting Edge of Antorus beyond the new raid coming out. Because the new raid technically wouldn't be a new raid tier, would it? They wouldn't make it a new raid tier or anything like that. It would be like, what, 3 or 4 bosses? Well, the thing is with Emerald Nightmare, that was the same tier as Trials of Valor and Nighthold. That's why they didn't remove it with that. They don't just remove Cutting Edge with a new raid, but with a new raid tier. Now, if they decide to not consider this extra raid as a raid tier, which they probably wouldn't, it's too few bosses, then, allegedly, then yes, they may indeed just say, do you know what, up until the pre-expansion patch, you can still get your Cutting Edge. Well, what they did with Hellfire Citadel was they brought Hellfire Citadel out, right? And then they didn't do anything else. You know, they brought Hellfire Citadel out round about the time, about 2 months before they even announced the next expansion. And that was the last piece of content we ever got. Oh, did they remove it when Nighthold came out? Okay. I thought they left it on. All right. I don't know then. I thought it was all considered the same tier. Oh yeah, that's what I mean, Mahal. Yeah, I absolutely agree. What he said suggested a roughly between 3 and 5 boss raid, I would say. Hellfire Citadel Cutting Edge was available up until the pre-patch. I think they stopped it at the pre-patch. I'm not 100%. But the point is that you were able to get cutting edge on Hellfire Citadel for over a year. It was available for over a year. So if you killed Archimon Mythic at any point during that time, so there were people getting their cutting edge a year before other people got their cutting edge in the same tier. So that's what happened with WoD. We obviously can't, in terms of trying to predict how Legion is going to end, we can't possibly draw on past experiences because it will be totally unlike any other expansion, at least for years. I mean, it might be more like TBC, except that was a much more major one at the end. TBC, when did Sunwell Plateau come out? But that certainly lasted a lot of guilds right up until the end. There were not that many guilds killed it. I mean, we got like world rank 70-ish, something like that on it. And we were farming it for a few weeks before the pre-expansion patch. But that was about it. So I can't imagine many people cleared the whole of Sunwell Plateau before the pre-expansion patch at the end of TBC. So it might be much more like that. But of course with a shorter, raid. Emerald Nightmare was obviously way easier. The difficult fight on that one was Cenarius. But again, I mean, it was quite a good boss in a way, in terms of the way it was difficult, because it was one of those that got a lot easier with more gear. Whereas then when you got more gear, you sort of appreciated the mechanical side of Xavius, which is obviously a complete turnip of a boss. But it stayed just as difficult no matter what your gear was like, really. Whereas Cenarius got a lot easier. I mean, yeah, the roots. I had that in mind, actually, when I was doing that video on other ways of punishing players for failing mechanics, with slows and roots and stuff like that, and that pops into my head, Scenarios. Because that's quite a good system there. Doesn't usually kill people, unless you're really careless. But it does screw you over, suddenly getting rooted. But, I mean, that was also a classic case of what you do to rank as well, because I ended up with rank 1 on that when we killed it for the first time. Simply because I had a nice... I had everything going my way. I had a nice assignment. At the time, most melee had to go off and deal with ads, whereas we chose to push the boss, push the DPS on the boss. So we had all the slowest but highest DPS, single target DPS, including me, on the boss at all times. So I didn't have to run off anywhere. I could just DPS. Also, I was the one who took the least damage from Thorns, his Dread Thorns. Took almost no damage from that, even though I was up on him all the time. Slow attacks. And then we also had a steady stream of people dying as well. So I had like a really high retribution proc. Did it? That's interesting, because it never used to do me any harm at all. I was always, even though I was one of 3 people who was just on the boss all the time, I was always like really low down on the damage taken from it. Oh, Boomkin, I don't know then. I mean, I had like Eye for an Eye as well when it was open. You could use Shield of Vengeance. And just the fact that, I wasn't hitting it that often. It's just my damage, my hits did a lot of damage. Oh, yeah. Well, I was fine. But yeah, okay. But, yeah, I'm now thinking what they're going to do. Because Neltharion's Vault... Because in the store, in the quest, we killed the corrupted drakes, didn't we? That's right, isn't it? Only Ebonhorn survived. I was just thinking there's going to be a dragon left behind that we have to kill. Because it seems to me a bit crap to be doing Neltharion's Vault and to go in there and no boss would be a dragonkin. That would seem to be a bit weird. And yet the whole point is that we were supposed to have killed them. They could easily bring back Rathian at any time. Yes. It is possible it is intended. Because like I say, in that quest line in Alpha did have Rathian in it. You know, they changed the quest line. He was actually a feature of that quest line originally in Legion Alpha. Whether he was there as a stopgap or they just changed their mind, I don't know. So, yes, I would say there would be, if this is a thing, a high probability that Rathian would be in. And yes, I agree, I don't think it would be as a boss. I don't think he will have become corrupted. I think. What would he want, though? Because his motivation in MoP was very much about saving Azeroth, wasn't it? Now, if he was going to pop up at any time to do that, you would have thought popping up when the Legion were invading, so it would be a good one. Because although he could pop up about, oh, you think you've saved Azeroth, but actually now there's this thing, that's fine. But where was he when the Legion were about? Neltharion could have more hidden stuff there, yes. I'm not sure specifically which old god. I think it was just the whispers of the old gods in general. It may have been one in particular, and it may well have been Zoth. I'm not sure. It might be, yes, Mastex. It might be looking for an artifact. That would be a reasonably good pretense, wouldn't it? Sending us in there. It is a vault after all, and what do you keep in a vault? Treasures, artifacts. He ate the heart of the Thunder King, didn't he? So, yes, you could sort of say he's eaten some Titan essence. Yeah, I think it was just old gods in general that were whispering to Neltharion. But I'm just trying to think, because what sort of bosses would we have in there? Like, I struggle to think it would be Dragonkin, and yet it doesn't seem to make a lot of sense if there were not at least one. Also, bringing Rathian back might allow him to become like the guide. Although, whether it be a good idea, I don't know. Because, like I say, the last two expansions, like Legion and WoD, Khadgar's been sort of the main guide. I don't think they should do that for another expansion, because then it just seems to me that he's our guide, which is not the way it's supposed to be. Bringing back Rathian and then bringing back here allows you to then know who he is for the next expansion. For those who maybe didn't play MoP, that would... You're always missing good things. That would be possible. But, again, is it sensible? Because it's then he was our guide in MoP, then Khadgar took over for a couple of expansions, and then it's back to Rathian. I'm not sure that that seems all that sensible to me. I still like the idea of potentially Illyria. My only gripe with Illyria becoming our guide in the next expansion is she's very anti-Horde. That being said, no, actually, some of you can answer this for me. I have not done the Argus stuff as Horde, so I have no idea. But you must do the same quest lines as us. How does Illyria treat Horde players? Because she's really super anti-Horde. Because I would like to know that. What does, when you go on the Illyria, normally? Really? That's spectacular. Because, like, Varisa is not very happy with the Horde. But she has that little phrase, doesn't she, at the Exodar saying, well, you can't question the fact that they're good fighters, blah, blah, blah. But Illyria really, really badly hates the Horde. She hates orcs, at least. Obviously, the Horde now includes Blood Elves, which were originally her people. So, yeah, I mean, she says that to everyone that she can't. But you'll also know when she says that, she doesn't just say she can't believe Sylvanas leads the Horde. She specifically says, you know, how can she do that when you consider what the Horde did to our people. And remember, it killed her brother, well, their brother, as well as their own people, as well as attacking their city. So they haven't bothered to change any story in it. I mean, they at least, I noticed, because I was still Horde when I started Legion, and I noticed when I was doing the Alpha that although they toned it down, Tyrande was a bit of a bitch to Horde. She, you know, you would follow Tyrande around. I almost abandoned her at one point because she was being so bitchy to me on my Blood Elf Paladin, when here was I helping her to rescue Malfurion. And she was being a right cow. But Blizzard did actually tune that down. So with Illyria, they haven't done anything. That's a bit crap. A Millennium. Well, you might consider that Illyria is becoming different after 1,000 years. That sort of seems okay. But the problem is, like, it's that phrase to me about her being really surprised that Sylvanas is leading the Horde, and she says it, you know, bearing in mind what the Horde did. So she clearly hasn't forgiven that. So that just sounds to me like someone couldn't be bothered. Because that doesn't make a lot of sense to me. I mean, it would, yeah, I would agree. You know, 1,000 years might help her to put into perspective, but that to me seemed undermined by her, you know, surprise. Oh yeah, Malfurion. Well, I think he's a wimp. I think he's overhyped. Malfurion, when it's put to the test, has always been a wimp. Always. Like, he was a wimp in Warcraft 3 because, you know, he kept letting Illidan off. I mean, to be fair, Illidan I thought had a hard deal anyway, but he kept letting him off. You know, when he tried to forbid Tyrande from setting Illidan free, he went, "No, I forbid it," and Tyrande basically went, "Gonna do it anyway. Don't care what you say." No, he's pathetic. He's a feeble character. I mean, even his proudest moment, defeating Archimonde at Mount Hyjal, and all he actually did for that, as far as I could tell, was blow a horn and send a load of wisps after him. Oh yeah, we've got. That's what I mean, Mahal. Yeah, and I haven't seen any data mine dialogue about that, so I have no idea what she's got to say about Sylvanas being undead. Although, ironically, you know, that might be less upsetting because it's not her fault. She didn't choose to be undead. That was all Arthas's fault. I think all the races in World of Warcraft are fairly xenophobic, if truth be told. But yes, elves are especially. I think it's obviously it's like the because they're it comes back to like Tolkien type elves, doesn't it? They're like the chosen ones, so they think they're better than everyone else. You know, and just like the elf, I mean, it's taken directly out of Tolkien. You know, the elves in Tolkien were, you know, the gods effectively in Tolkien considered them like pets and brought them back to Valinor with them. And in this one, you know, the Titans were quite happy with them. They didn't seem to like the trolls at all, but they were quite pleased with the Night Elves, the inquisitive Night Elves. Poor old trolls, lost all their lands. But they also all seem to be the only one on Azeroth that really has much in the way of yeah, but the Night Elves were loved and the trolls were not. Well, most of the races are a corruption in some form. That's why I was saying, and I've not done my vlog on it actually, but that's why I was saying, when it comes to, like, we now consider sort of the void is going to be our main existential threat. But then it has to be wondered, if you think about it, so up until now, in theory, we had the void and we had the Sargeras and his Burning Legion. That you could look at it this way. What's so bad about the Void Lords and the old gods? Really, because they created humans effectively, because humans devolved or evolved, whatever you want to call it, from Vrykul, dwarves from earthen, night elves from trolls, any number of other races from non-flesh versions. The gnomes, they are, that's a blot against their record. Obviously, that was a fail. So you can think about it this way: we've sort of been the void aren't after killing us either. They just want to corrupt Azeroth, or we call it corrupting Azeroth. They want to change the nature of Azeroth. The Titans also wanted to change the nature. That's why they ordered Azeroth. So maybe the void's actually quite nice. Maybe the Twilight's Hammer have got it right. Maybe all these doomsayers have got it right. So yeah, maybe I should do a video praising the void. I don't know. Well, they haven't actually done any huge harm to us. Neltharion was sort of harmful, but maybe he was just a mistake. He did try to destroy Azeroth. I don't think that was in the old gods' plans, to be fair. So we can't really blame them for that. And as I say, most of the races we play are the work of the old gods. So they're our creators. We don't know exactly, quite. We don't know. But at the same time, we knew that effectively the Titans were bad for us. Because think about it this way, it wasn't just Sargeras. I'm not an old god. I might be one of their servants. We know that Sargeras was obviously bad news for us. If he could have got anywhere near us, he would have chopped us in half, no problem. But the other Titans weren't too clever either. Think about it this way. With Algernon, what was he going to do? He was going to send a message to the Titans telling them, that we'd all gone rogue. And what would the Titans have done? They'd have come back and purged us all. So the Titans would have killed us all. Or such was my understanding from what Algernon was banging on about. And also, like Sargeras, okay, I mean, all of the Pantheon, remember, it's not that the Pantheon disagreed with Sargeras's alarm at this idea that Titan souls are being corrupted by the void. Sargeras had a plan, which is basically to kill everyone. The Pantheon just didn't have a plan at all. So we don't necessarily know that their plan would have been any better for us than anything else. What do we know about the void? For all we know, the void is fairly happy with free will. It might be. We don't know that. We know that the light forces people to do things because obviously Zera could herself be a rogue Naru, if I can call her her. I don't know whether they're supposed to be male and female, the Naru. So I don't know. I mean, I'm assuming they are going to be viewed as the bad guys in the game because we've got to have something. But at the moment, I'm struggling to find evidence to suggest that the void is stunningly bad for us. Do I think that the Holy Dreadlord is forced to become holy? I don't know. I was despairing as I went through that on Alpha. I was thinking, hang on a minute. So, and then when it all went live as well, I'm thinking, so first of all, we've got a Night Elf Paladin. Then we have a Demon Paladin. Now we've got a dead Night Elf Paladin. And it's like, hardly any of my champions are proper paladins. Hardly any. I'm not clicking on him. I don't understand the purpose of a holy dreadlord. It makes no sense to me. I don't know what they're thinking. Other than it's a not so subtle suggestion that demons can be our friends, and that actually demons maybe are not always bad. They're potentially loose cannons, but they're not necessarily inherently evil. Maybe that's what they're trying to suggest to us. No. I don't know. It might well be an example of what Zero was going to do to Illidan, yes. Oh, the demons certainly joined willingly. I mean, I imagine, from what we sort of thought, shall we say, because we don't really know what's going on anymore, that the demons absolutely loved it. I mean, what were they doing? They were imprisoned on Mardum because that was Sargeras' job, because they were causing chaos. What does Sargeras say when he releases us? He says, I'm going to release you, right? But I want you to do what I say. And you can imagine them going, what do you want us to do? I want you to go out and cause chaos. Oh, right, well, that's what we were doing anyway, so that sounds fine to us. So I'm absolutely certain that most of the demons were totally willing to do what he wanted, because what they wanted to do anyway was what Sargeras wanted them to do, which was to devastate worlds. That dreadlords weren't always demons, just corrupted from some other race. There's nothing in the lore about it, but anything's possible. As far as I know, in lore-wise, they are just demons. What do I think about Arator? Are you talking about the Evitol video? I saw their video, yeah. No. Because, a number of reasons. First of all, Ellery had nothing to do with the Shadow when he was born. So that's something she's acquired later on. And also, Arator seems to be a bit of a sideline. He's never really had any significant story. He doesn't even seem to have one now in Argus, does he? He's not featured. The most, and I don't see a big storyline for him. He's not. If he was going to have one, he would have one now. He would have been like emerging throughout the Legion expansion, and he wasn't. They only dragged him a lot. We've only got that one scene from him aboard the Vindicar because they have to. Terali and Illyria have been found. We had the other scene in the Paladin Order Hall, but obviously only Paladins would know about that. Terali and Illyria have been found. Obviously, they have to meet back up with Arator. Arator sulks a bit. They say, look, we were trying to look after you. What more do you want? And then that's it. Hang on, what we're not sure about now. I only have the Pantheon's word on what they were doing. What are now demons could well have been forced cannon fodder, possibly. Maybe. Anything's possible. Anything is possible. Well, they're not good parents, gamer. So there's a situation here. They're about to leap through a portal into another alien world to go and battle demons. They have a child. What do you do with that child? Do you take it back to Honor Hold and say to the guys there, look after this child? Or do you go, no, we want to be with our child. We're going to drag it through the dangerous portal and go and fight demons with it. So, I don't know. I think giving it up for adoption for a little while. I don't think they planned to leave it for so long, but they wouldn't have known about that. They didn't neglect it. They left him in good hands. He grew up to be a paladin. You can't say fairer than that. Since Metzen steps down, he's gone. He's bringing up his own kid now, isn't he? Sat in a chair in the corner reading books. Christy Golden stepping in for the next expansion. Do you think we'll finally get a good lore development? One would hope so. I don't think we can blame Chris Metzen for any shortcomings that there's ever been in the storyline. But if you actually get in a proper author to do storyline for something, you would expect that it would be more coherent at least. Because that's often my problem. It's not so much that the storyline is sometimes not as detailed as it ends up being in the books, because they do the books and you do end up fleshing it out. It's that sometimes they forget something later on and then something doesn't make sense. They don't seem to have a map of everything that they can refer to and go, oh, if we do this, then we have to sort of explain that and all the rest of it. Azeroth has not had peace in how long? Well, let's think now. We'll assume it hasn't had peace for the entirety of World of Warcraft. So it's really about how much time was there between the last story in Warcraft 3 and World of Warcraft. And I believe it was 10 years. So, but how much time has passed between the very start of World of Warcraft and now? I don't know. It can't be more than 20. I think it's probably supposed to be lifetime thingy, because at the start of it, Anduin was a little boy, and now he's just a young man, but a very young man. So I'd probably guess that World of Warcraft has been going as long as it's been going, which is about, what, 13 years. But there's an awful lot of happened in that 13 years. There's more happened in that 13 years than happened in the previous 10,000. Haven't played WoW since Warlords. How strong are healers now? It depends what you mean by strong. Like, there's no one else going to do their job for them. So, they're sort of essential. Resto Shamans are very useful. Holy Paladins, you tend not to want multiple of them, I gather. Resto Shamans, different matter. Because Spirit Link Totem covers all sorts of ills. I think the one at the moment that's not considered the best is Mistweaver. Although we have a Mistweaver who's always in ours, but that's because he's very, very good at it. Yes, there is. So, yeah, I mean, this is the nature of World of Warcraft. Like an MMO, isn't it? You have to keep bringing out regular content. So yeah, you have this situation where you had 10,000 years ago there was the War of the Ancient, and then I don't know what 30, 40 years ago you had the invasion of Azeroth by the Orcs from Draenor. And then, you know, that went on for about 10 years, and then you've got this. Hi, Lemnacken. Yeah, it's the raid cooldowns that are the issue with Mistweavers, yes. It's not that they can't heal. So they don't have, you know, Cocoon can sometimes be beneficial. But, you know, I think it's a bit like Lay on Hands. It's a bit potluck whether it ends up doing any good or not. You don't want to go back to being an adventurer. I don't think you're going to get the choice. Because you're not going to... Like, there's a lot of role players want that. They want that mystery person that turns up and saves the day. Like the Bruce Banner type thing. But we're not going to... It's very clear from the last few expansions that we are increasing in our rank within the Alliance or the Horde, depending on which side you are. I don't think they would write in a time gap between the expansions. Because apart from anything else, that would mean suddenly your character got a few years older. I don't know. I mean, it's one of these things. It's a fantasy game. People don't ask too many questions about these sort of things. You'll just roll with it. Also, if they were going to have a significant passage of time, that would, you would think, necessitate some redesigns of zones, which obviously they did in Cataclysm, which is not successful in my view. I don't think they want another dose of that. I really don't think they're interested in doing that again. Plus, of course, we have the pre-expansion patch, so everything rolls into it anyway, because that is supposed to occur just at the point. Like, the pre-expansion patch in Legion was the invasion by the Legion, and then in WoD it was the portal opening up on us, or the Iron Horde coming out of it, and we're having to beat those back and all the rest of it. By the time the mountains in Eastern Kingdom stop burning. There's an awful lot of things that I don't think they thought through at all with the Cataclysm thing, because it was all very much about, you know, Blackwing all the way through. And I can just imagine it from a new player's point of view. All these storylines about Blackwing. You're going to, oh, really excited, I'm going to get to Blackwing. When we're going to meet Blackwing. And then you're suddenly told that, oh, by the way, yeah, you've already passed it. You're level 100 now. He's long gone. You know, that was level 85 content. It's like, what? Missed it. Has it been 7 years already? Hold on. I suppose it has. I wasn't playing when Cataclysm came out. It was a surprise to me when I did come back to the game, which was in Cataclysm later on. Just how much it changed. I mean, the first thing I was surprised at was looking at people's health and mana pools. Huge explosion. Even though, I suppose, proportionally, it was in line with what you'd expect. Because not only had I come back to a new expansion, but also a new, like, later on in the expansions, they all had really good gear. So absolutely massive. But yes, that was when I was just coming back at the end of Cataclysm again. I would like to see a completely different attitude to levels, like I keep saying. Like, to not have them. They are. And I really do think it's very off-putting. But Blizzard don't. Because if they did, they wouldn't... You know, they already had a situation where they started... You could tell that they did at one time. Because after Wrath, then it was... Instead of 10 levels per expansion, it went to 5 levels per expansion for like Cataclysm and Mop. But then it went back up to 10. So they obviously decided to hell with it. I mean, what would it be now? If they'd have kept it as the same, that means in WoD, we'd have been getting to level 95. So we'd only have been out like level 100. Even that's too much, isn't it? Or maybe that's what they thought. Maybe they thought, you know what? You know, maybe they didn't change their mind. They just thought to themselves, it's already too big. There's nothing we can do about it. Just go with it. To hell with it. What's the worst that can happen? They're not going to get to 1,000. So, you know, I mean, what we're going to get up to, I don't know. The Paragon levels from Diablo. I think there's a lot of people wish that fewer things came over from Diablo. But Paragon levels in general, yes. Because they have a similar system in Elder Scrolls Online. And the Elder Scrolls Online system is way better as well. Because in that game, you have 2 types of level. You have your normal levels, and there's 50 of those. And that was what there was when the game first came out as well. You get to level 50, that's sort of your first level cap. You've got to level cap. Then they had these veteran levels, but that was load rules. They got rid of those. So now it's called champion levels. So you get experience as normal for doing content, and you get these champion levels. But the champion levels are account-wide. So all you have to do on a new character is get to level 50, and you're at the same champion level as the main character you've been playing for years or something like that. That would be good. Because you still have to level up a character. But you don't have to, you know, do it to the nth degree type thing. But yeah, I just think there's so many things about World of Warcraft, because you have to think now, it is now the old-fashioned game. It's no longer the new kid on the block, and it's been a long time since it has. It's the old grandpa sitting on his lawn waving his stick saying, "Get off my lawn, you kids." Well, the thing is with the champion levels, you can just create accelerated content through part of it. Like reduce the amount of experience needed to get through the first so many or whatever. Because they used to do that. When expansions came out, they used to just reduce the amount of experience you need to get the earlier levels. And then we had heirlooms come in. But you know, there's always ways of letting people accelerate up to a point. They still have to sort of do some work, but get caught up in a reasonable amount of time. But I just don't think they do. I think they're stuck in their ways in a lot of ways, and also, or perhaps it's just that the developers are just too focused on keeping the game going when they know it's old. They can't, or they certainly would never have expected World of Warcraft to have gone as long as this. There are people already, like, I mean, I know when World of Warcraft, got to its 10th anniversary, and that was a few years ago now, if you think about it. So it got to its 10th anniversary, and you know, and I made an offhand comment about, oh, okay, wonder what the next 10 will bring, and people will go, it can't go for another 10 years, can it? Well, it's like, well, who's to say? Who says it can't? And what is it on now? It came out, I know in Europe it didn't come out till like March 2005, but in North America, if memory serves, it's coming up to the anniversary again, isn't it? It came out in 2004, autumn-ish. So what was it? I don't know, November-ish, something like that, if memory serves. I'm not sure. So round about that, so it's not far off the 13th anniversary, is it? It's not showing any signs of slowing down. November 16th, thank you very much. There you go. So so it's going to get to the 13th anniversary. We're going to have another expansion, so then it's going to get up to at least the 15th anniversary, because an expansion lasts a couple of years. And they're not, you know, the way they're working now, when they're doing one expansion, they're working on another. So at some point they'll be working on, this isn't going to be the last expansion, so that means up to 70. It easily can get to 20. This is going to be an MMO that's going to have a 20th anniversary. I think so, yeah. Now let's think what we'd be up to that point. So if it's about 2 years per expansion and about 10 levels an expansion, so we're going to get, so Kulturas is going to be like 120. That takes us up to about 2019. Well, let's say to 15 years. Let's just do it in terms of age of the game. Then 130 to 17, 104. So we get to level 150 for its 20th anniversary or something like that. But yeah, I think it is. Because sometimes I worried when I was doing this channel, I was thinking to myself, I wish I'd have started it in MOP when everyone else was starting them, because all the big WoW YouTubers started round about either very late Cataclysm or early MOP. And I was thinking, I wish I'd have started then. I think because I was thinking at first I'm running out of time here. And I'm thinking maybe I'm not. Maybe I'm not at all. As long as I stay interested in the game, I could have another 7 years out of it before I have to think of something else to do. Well, I'll probably think of something else to do in the meantime anyway. So, and then there'll be even more hideous anniversary events coming out for that. Maybe they'll turn Molten Core into a dungeon and completely like take a dump on my memories of it. I was only quite pleased that they recently seemed to have stopped redoing old dungeons, because I really didn't like that at all. Well, there's so many things they've done. I mean, UBRS started off as a 15-man dungeon, like as a raid dungeon. And then they changed it to 10-man towards the end of vanilla. And then they changed it to a 5-man dungeon. And then they completely got rid of it and changed it with another 5-man dungeon. Which is annoying because that means the boss that I was able to summon, you can't summon anymore. Fortunately, I have the staff, and now that with the new transmog system, it means that I can use it on any caster I like as well, so that's alright, I suppose. Because that'll be fairly unique now, I think. I don't think they've used the skin for that on anything else. Oh yeah, it was because of that. I mean, I remember in vanilla 5-man in it anyway, when we were doing, obviously in my raid guild, right? At the time, Blackwing Lair Raiders, we were able to 5-man it quite easily. Moradin. I hated Moradin. I hated the whole of Desolus. I hated Desolus, the zone. It was a miserable place. I hated doing the Centaur rep, which I didn't bother with in the end. I barely started it. I can't be bothered with this. I really despise the dungeon. I sometimes still get lost in it now. And I don't mean lost in the dungeon. I mean lost trying to find the dungeon. It's that labyrinth there. And when you really wanted to go to the right one, because often you would want to go to the water elemental boss for the frost resistance trinket, because that was useful on one of the Dragons of Nightmare. Or was it nature resistance? Nature resistance, sorry. Dragons of Nightmare was nature. Really didn't like that place at all. But I'd had to do the quest anyway. I didn't have to. I did anyway. So at least I got the staff that allowed me to teleport once I got into the dungeon somewhere up towards the end of it. Which I still have the staff, but it just doesn't do anything anymore. So no, I wasn't a fan of that. Still not now. And you had to keep giving it a go because it dropped before any decent raid shield dropped for paladins, like healing shield. There was a boss, one of the goblin boss, that dropped a decent one. So you had to sort of do it for that. And it was not easy to get a group for that part of that dungeon either. It's one of those big dungeons where nobody ever did the whole thing. You did it in bits. And it was very difficult to find one. Because it always seemed to be on the edge where that goblin was. You know, if you did an early bit, you didn't quite do up to him. And if you did a later bit, you didn't start from anywhere near him. So you almost never got to do him. Just like the Emperor in Blackrock Depths, almost never got a group for that. Because the only people who wanted to do it were paladins. And what you needed was a mage to kill all those little things. Those little dwarfs where the flame bearers were. Or torchbearers, whatever they were called. So there were several dungeons, like these big dungeons where you wouldn't get to do the whole thing. Where there were just bosses you would want to do and you just couldn't get groups for. Very easily at all. But anyway, that's enough of that. At least these days, the worst situation you can come across is that a dungeon is brought out with an optional boss. That's always quite divisive as well. I don't think we've got any in Legion though, have we? I think. There aren't any optional bosses now. I don't suppose it would make sense with Mythic Plus, would it? Apart from Nightbane, I suppose. It's the only one. Time Walking replaced the revamped dungeons. Well, I don't know. I think the revamped dungeons were all about people who couldn't think of an idea for a new dungeon. So they just nicked one. I think it is just now, perhaps, that they have enough people in the team to think... I don't think they deliberately wanted to resurrect old dungeons. I just think they couldn't be asked to think of new ones. But now, possibly, the team is large enough that they can actually think of newish dungeons. I mean, like with Karazhan, for example, of course, that's a redo. But it doesn't stop you doing the original Karazhan. That's still there. If they'd have done that, I wouldn't have minded. If they'd have just done a Scholarman, say, for higher level, for like Cataclysm level, and left the original Scholarmans there, I wouldn't have an issue at all. It's the fact that I can't do the original Scholarmans, which I really used to enjoy. Although, to be fair, the original Scholomance wasn't even replacing Cataclysm, because that was changed before Cataclysm anyway, wasn't it? But at least it was still mostly the same. Yeah, we've got another Time Walking next reset, haven't we? Well, I suppose this reset from North America. I think, is it Mop Time Walking this week? I had a funny story with Dead Mines. When I was leveling up, first of all, in Vanilla, I used to sometimes, when I was in Ironforge, see in the trade chat, people saying, looking for DM Tribute Run. Now, I know now that that means Diamol Tribute Run, so you'd take the Frost Oil and the Rune Cloth and all the other bits and pieces and disable the bosses rather than kill them, get extra better loot at the end, and then come back and get a load of buffs from those bosses. But at the time, I didn't know that. I looked at it, I thought, DM Tribute Run. The only DM I was familiar with, what would have been around about level 30-40, was Dead Mines. And I thought, why would high-level players be asking to do a Dead Mines run? And what's this tribute thing all about? I would almost wonder what new players nowadays get confused by. But then people hardly ever seem to... Obviously, people don't arrange groups in global chats anymore because you do it in group finders. What's that, Mahal? Do similar things? Oh, right. Okay, nostalgia. I don't know how much of it is. I suppose some of it's a nostalgia factor. Karazhan, I guess, was because it made limited sense redoing Karazhan. I know you've got a semi-link with the Legion because it's, I mean, Aegwyn's tower originally, which she built, but it's, yeah, I think it was purely done for nostalgia purposes to redo it. Except I don't think it really came off at all. I'm not really sure, because when you actually do the Karazhan thing, you don't really feel, oh yes, I remember doing it, because it's very, very different now. The only boss that's even remotely the same, or bosses, are the Maiden boss and Moros. The rest of them are either completely different bosses or they're not very much like it. Shade of Aran has a couple of things that are similar, and again, that's about it. I think Shade of Aran was probably one of the hardest bosses at the time as well. But at that time, I mean, you've got to remember, you were really, at the start of TBC, you were just sort of dungeon geared, really. You were just picking up your first bits of epics. Whereas now, you're fully kitted out in epics before the first raid even opens, when the new expansion starts now. New mechanics and such in the invasion points this week. Are there? Where are you seeing that from? Can't see anything about any changes to them. Oh, I see, okay. Just did one where you have to be in a spot in a few seconds, do it, and get a damage buff, don't and take damage. Maybe then. No, I've not come across that. And I didn't do that many invasions when I was on the PTR, so I mean, a lot of the invasions are actually new to me even when it went live. So I'd certainly not come across that. That's possible then. Maybe they have hidden affixes each week, just like with the Mythic Plus dungeons, only they don't tell you what they are. No, well, everyone, each to their own. Personally, for me, what I like about the invasions is getting in there, killing stuff and getting out again. As a result, I quite like that molten one because it's all in quite a small area. Kill everything that moves, go. What I most disliked in terms of the ones I've done so far is the one where you come in and there's all those little like magical zones which don't do anything at the moment. So you have to go all the way down to the bottom, killing stuff. Then you kill enough stuff and then you've got to go all the way back and unlock all those zone things. And then the main boss spawns in back down at the bottom. That's hateful, that one. But anything where I am required to do excessive amounts of movement, I'm not hugely keen on. There are certainly different effects in what might be considered the same world where you go with these invasions. Oh, the one with the corrupted fell shamblers, I absolutely hate as well. It's the only one where I feel in mortal danger on my paladin. I have died several times on my paladin, and you just get the feeling you can't do anything about it as well. That's the worst part of it. I've survived a couple of times, but most, but even when I've survived, I have felt that I've been focusing more on keeping myself alive than actually doing damage. I've done my review of 6 points. Sorry, I keep saying 6.3. 7.3, yeah, I need to get on with that. Maybe I'll do that tonight. It was certainly overtuned. If it's killing me, then I shudder to think what it's doing to other people. Oh. Well, the thing is, yeah, I never really know. I suppose you could change to holy. Try and avoid getting into combat as soon as you go in and see it, I guess. Well, I mean, health is irrelevant because it'll whittle the health down no matter how much or how little you've got. You need a way of healing yourself up. Like as a Death Knight, I got away with it on my Blood DK, I think. I think I did. But what you would aim to do in that one is to pull everything and do loads of death strikes. But on my Paladin, I basically need to be spamming Justicar's Vengeance to heal myself up. The Felgar that summons the spires, I'm okay with that. It's only annoying if whoever's got aggro on it doesn't move it. Like, as long as they keep moving it, it's fine. Sometimes they don't. Sometimes they think pillars that shoot green lightning out of them are a fun thing to stand in. Well, in an extreme case in that situation, I'll just taunt it. That's actually what did for me on Kill Jaden, actually, this week. We were doing heroic Kill Jaden with the guild, but our other tank doesn't really make... It's an off night, it's not compulsory. So we had like one of our main tanks, and it's always someone else who does an off-spec tank. And we seem to have been doing guest spots recently. So this week we did it on someone... It's a social place, they can bring what they like, but it's on their warrior alts that they've just created. And the gear's fine on it, but they don't know how to tank. I mean, they did all right to say they don't know how to tank. But unfortunately, on Kill Jane on Heroic, the tank had spawned, and he was tanking it in front of the boss, so we couldn't hit it. So the raid leader's sort of screaming, get it behind the boss, get it behind the boss. And in the end, I just got sick of it, and I just taunted it. And I said I was as well. I said, I'm taunting it out. I taunted it out. Take it off me when you can. But no one did, and no one healed me up either, so I just died. Having already used Bubble to soak a big Armageddon thing. Let's have a look. Frozen. Well, don't know if anyone's noticed 7.3, but a lot of low-level loot from dungeons, and also noticed BOE drops and quest rewards are being ready for some future updates. Stats on many items got changed to use the Legion stat system. Capes with strength, intelligent, agility, blah, 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 blah. Some items changed to epic. I don't know then. Are you linking that from somewhere? That sort of seems like you're linking it from somewhere. I would... MMO champion, okay. What, on a forum? Or just one of their own actual statements? Because I've not... Unless it's just come up, I'm not seeing it. I would love it if they did scale everything. I'd certainly be very, very interested then. Forced personal loot in vanilla dungeons. Yes, someone said something about that. I am sort of aware of that. Far less loot for soloers. Yeah. Right, okay. Are we back? It wasn't telling me anything untoward had happened. Right, okay. Oh, hold on. Mute, that's rubbish. Right, okay. Well, that sort of seems to say that I am back anyway. Because I'm picking myself up. I'll just give it a few seconds for it to say. No, I didn't hit any wrong switch. It said up here. I am now streaming, by the way. So hopefully you can hear me and see me. It looks like I can on there now. When I just went onto my Twitch thing. But I didn't hit anything. I didn't change it. It was happily telling me up here that I was streaming. So I have no idea what went wrong. If it dropped off the stream, because the software I used to stream was still saying everything was fine. We're obviously having technical issues tonight. I don't know what's causing this. I don't have no. Well, I don't know what the issue was. Sorry. It's just randomly decided to stop. But I forgot where we were now. Oh yeah, potential scaling. Well, we'll have to see. Obviously, every expansion they always do something significant from a technological point of view. We've got scaling in terms of the Legion zones. It would be an obvious thing, assuming it doesn't take too much work, to scale all zones. There are... I'm going to have to write some of this down. Sorry. We've got, give me like ideas for like 4 different vlogs tonight. I have to write them down. What do I think of changing low-level items for the leveling content? What do you... Well... I mean, I've talked about scaling before in terms of how I would do it. So I would quite like it if you can level, any previous content levels wherever you like. So like, you know, you can start off in like Elwyn Forest. If you're human, go to Westfall, but then go to Burning Steps or something like that. And then to Outland, you know, and do what you want all the way up to what would now be level 100. And then at that point, you have to start doing, it stops scaling perhaps, and you have to start doing the new expansions zones, because that's how Blizzard get us to do the storyline for the new expansion. So that's how I would do it. Now, this isn't proof that they're going to do any sort of scaling like that at all, but it is an indicator, isn't it? The fact that they're to be updating vanilla content strongly suggests that that's what they're doing, because what is the other explanation? And I would be supportive of that. I think that would be a good thing to do. But if it would work, that you take away experience from questing, you pick a zone when you complete. Well, this is what I talked about this before, doing that as a way of getting levels. So instead of getting experience in the normal way, you do quest lines, and your reward for finishing a quest line is getting a level. That's the sort of thing that I've talked about in the past. But I think it's too different. I think there's certain core gameplay things that, even though they're outdated, Blizzard will still stick with. So I think that they will probably... it will still have experience-based leveling. But it would be good if, yeah, it just all scaled for you. The question would be, though... Would it, actually? No, I don't think it would care. I was going to say the question would be how it would work with heirlooms. But it would be fine, wouldn't it? It wouldn't actually affect it. Because obviously heirlooms would not be at all suitable for any sort of questing system where you get rewarded with levels for completing quests rather than just getting experience. Well, what I would see as an opportunity, and I've talked about this before as well, if you did have scaling in previous zones, if all the content in the game was for scaling for leveling purposes, you wouldn't need anywhere near as many levels. So you could actually do a level squish. How difficult is the Seat of Triumvirate? I haven't done it on Mythic Plus either, but some people in my guild did when it came out, and they thought it was fine. Without having any idea what to do, they thought it was okay. They did struggle a little bit on a couple of bosses with not knowing what to do to begin with, but they certainly thought it was fine. It was certainly not the tuning nightmare that Cathedral was when 7.2 came out. So it looks, as far as I can tell from what the people have noted, that it's all right. But I haven't done it yet. I've only done it on Heroic, whether PTR or live. What have you got? Teaming, explosive, fortified. Yeah. Explosive's the annoying one. If you've got, well, steer clear of lower Karazhan then, basically. Possibly be careful in Blackrook Hold as well. Is that... I assume it's the same in both regions, so I assume that's our affixes as well next week from tomorrow. Lower Kara is alright as long as you don't have... Mind you, that being said, the bosses aren't always that happy either. I don't mind fortified in Lower Kara, that's not the issue. The issue is always if you've got anything else that makes the trash awkward. So fortified, I would actually say, is a good affix to have on Kara, because some of the bosses are also really nasty as well. So you I want to avoid tyrannical. Not that I'm an expert on any Mythic Plus dungeon, really. Because I really don't do them enough anymore to have anything other than... I never fully know what to do in the dungeons these days. And, quite frankly, when I do my first dungeon of the week, I'm always, up until halfway through, keep forgetting what affixes it's even. So I don't even always pay attention to what affixes it is. Unless it's really super obvious. Explosive is a fairly obvious one. You become acquainted with that quite quickly. But if it was teaming, explosive, fortified, I think I would be keen. More of Souls would be good. The last 2 weeks I've ended up with a More of Souls key. So that would be okay, wouldn't it? Anything that doesn't have an excessive amount of trash, or where the trash is not that bad, would be decent. Neltharian's Lair would... Teaming is not nice in Neltharian's Lair. But the rest of it wouldn't be too bad. But I get what I get. We'll have to see what key I get. And then if it's a rubbish key, I have to try and sneak in on someone else's key. And then possibly have to try and do it on my rogue as well. The first boss Which first boss? Sorry, I've talked about several dungeons. Oh, you mean Maw of Souls? Court. That's alright, actually. Yeah, Maw of Souls. Oh, explosive, yeah. Well, ads can. That's the problem. It's really annoying. Certain affixes are really annoying when they happen on bosses as well. Court of Stars, I suppose, is alright. Fortified teaming and explosive, I guess. I never liked Darkheart Thicket. The first boss, it never used to as well. Again, it must just be because I just don't do it enough these days. Like, at some point during that fight, he will charge me and kill me. Well, twice he will. Because the first time I don't care because I'll just, like, cheat death. And then at some point, he'll catch me out again. Or it'll be positioned slightly weirdly. And I'll be slightly ahead of it or something. It doesn't charge and it just kills me. The other bosses are sort of okay. And the last boss is fine. The last boss, because they had to nerf Xavius at one point, because a long time ago now, the really high level keys, he was doing his like shot on people, and it was just one-shotting people. I was in a group one time where we just had to give up on it because he was just literally one-shotting people. But I was sort of okay with that because I had a number of things to protect me when he did it. I had 2 cheat deaths as well as a Shield of Vengeance, which did just about enough to keep me alive. Yeah, it only leaps the farthest target, but then it leaps back. And if you're in the way when it leaps back, you're killed. You're dead. I'm fine with Xavius. I've always got on with Xavius. It's the fight in there that I'm okay. Well, basically, it's the even fight. Like, the tree boss is fine for me because you get to use your Blessing of Freedom to some good use on that. And Xavius is fine. The dragon is sort of okay now that I know where to stand when he does his pushback. But when they buffed that was fairly unpleasant to begin with. And then, even though it can still be a bit dicey, but you're usually okay on that. But the first boss always conspires to kill me somehow. So I always have a little bit of apprehension going into that one. Neltharion's Lair I do, but that's just because of the trash. The bosses are fine. Usually. Those are 2 I seem to have done quite commonly. Maw of Souls is fine. I'm quite happy to do Maw of Souls whenever, with whatever affixes. What rep am I? Army of the Light. I'm about 4,000 away on Army of the Light. So I'll get that by the weekend. And with Argusian Reach, I don't know. What am I? I'm not quite revered, I think. I think I'm a few thousand away from revered. I might be a bit closer to it, so I'm not sure. But either way, by the weekend, I would expect to be... I'm 4k from Exalted on Army of the Light, yes. But Argusian Reach, I'm still at Honoured, but I think I'm probably a similar amount, a few thousand, from revered. So at the weekend, I would expect to be Exalted with Army of the Light, possibly revered with Argusian Reach, at which point I won't care about any of the world quests unless they give me something like Artifact Power. Possibly if it gives a nice relic, and I might give it a go to see if it'll Titan Forge. But after that, I will actively not do the world quests unless it gives AP. And that will still mean doing a fair few world quests, because there's quite a lot of them seem to give AP. They've done it deliberately. Well, I do them all because I am going to need the rep. Although I don't need the rep as quickly as I thought I did. Excuse me. Yes. Well, my main issue with it is there seems to be a very small pool of world quests. So it's not just that, like on the Broken Isle, sometimes you would see the same world quest popping up on consecutive days. On Argus, you see the same world quest popping up on the same day. Like you'll do a world quest, later on that day it'll pop back up again. That's a bit tedious. Well, I am going to now start having to do more Argus stuff on my rogue, as I say, to try and get it slightly better geared in case it is required on Fallen Avatar. But I'm going to have to change some things on my UI, I think, to be effective, because on Fallen Avatar, so in the first phase, the primary job is to soak a touch of Sargeras. Well, that's okay. And then the second job is in phase 2, where you want to be soaking like a couple of the tornadoes. Not tornadoes. Don't ever soak those. Dark marks. Which involves trying to identify someone who's got one on them and shadow stepping to them when you've done the first. I'm hoping I can find a rogue really quickly just to join the guild. Unfortunately, rogues are super rare. I have not been able to find one all expansion. And I do not know why. I mean, it's not just this expansion they've been rare. They've been rare for the last couple of expansions, I would say. Or I've struggled to find some. But it's been all but impossible, this expansion. I think I've recruited one once, but it didn't last very long as a rogue at any rate. He decided he wanted to play a hunter. Which is a bit mad to me. I don't understand why that would be. Easy pass when you're a rogue. Because you get every benefit there is. You get to do very good damage if that's what your thing is. You get to be very useful if that's what your thing is. You get guaranteed raid spots if that's what your thing is. But for some reason, they don't exist. In PvE at any rate. I imagine there's quite a lot PvP orientated. But in PvE, they are really... And I suppose what exacerbates it is that the guilds who can attract decent rogue players will tend to get quite a lot of them. They'll get, you know, 3 or more of them, don't they? Exist. Very few exist. They're hiding in the shadows. But yeah, no, I just think, you know, there are, for whatever reason, they don't appeal to people. Someone in the guild, one of the officers, was suggested possibly it's because in the Starter Legion that they were no good for Mythic Plus dungeons. Now they're like the strongest. But at the time, they were not that great for Mythic Plus dungeons. People didn't really like to take them. Feral Druids, though... Well, the irony is we have a Feral Druid, and we have another one who applied to us like, we can get Feral Druids if we need to. But I gather there's like a relatively small number of Feral Druids who can play well. Even though the changes in 7.3 made it a bit, or closed the gap between the good and the mediocre ones. But rogues are, I mean, well, that's the thing, like so many people switched to rogues this tier. And there's still hardly any of them. But I think it's because, as I say, all the top guilds are vacuuming them all up. You know, because they're grabbing them all. So the sparse pool of rogues that exist have all been nicked and have been thrown into really high-end guilds. Even if they're not great players, but, you know, they're rogues, who cares? As long as they can do a basic job, they'll be all right. I mean, the fact that me on my rogue, I cannot play my rogue is badly geared. my rogue has very low artifact level. The fact that it's even been discussed that possibly I would take that on Final Avatar over my paladin tells you just how you can make it as a rogue in raiding without being all that brilliant. It's obviously helpful if you are very good, but it's not essential. You know, you can be pretty mediocre at best and still get yourself into quite a high performing guild, because you're taken for things like Cloak of Shadows and Feint. Well, any fool can press those at the right time. Well, I mean, undergeared we wouldn't worry about. The problem would be, can they demonstrate that they'd be able to do the content? It's quite difficult without experience. I mean, you could probably gear someone up fairly quickly. Although not immediately. It'd probably take a couple of weeks to get them up something like... And then the other problem would come. What about legendaries? What about artifact level? I mean, the artifact level is easy to get up if they can throw a lot of time at it, but what if they can't? What if they've got work and stuff like that, and they do only have so much time? So tricky. So even if, let's say, a load of people weren't playing Rogue at the start because they were so bad in Mythic Plus, and Mythic Plus, of course, is part and parcel of PvE now. You can't just ignore it as a raider. Then, even if they decided to go back to Rogue, you need someone who has quite a lot of time and the commitment to get it up to speed, because the legendaries will be a nightmare. You're just dependent on luck with that. There's not a lot you can... Everything else, if you can throw the time at it, you can sort of catch up. But not the legendaries. You can increase your chances of trying to get them, but you can't increase your chance. Well, I suppose if you've got a specific one in mind, maybe you just keep getting that armor piece or whatever it is from the Argonite, the Veiled Argonite vendor. Gives you a reasonable chance, maybe. Well, I keep coming up with the idea of, and it would be a very simple change, but every time I say it, and the same will happen here, every time I say it, all the rogue players go, no, no, don't even mention it, don't even whisper it, which is the idea of having Feint as baseline, but that and Evasion as the basic defensives. That you have Cloak of Shadows, I've forgotten what the talent is called that buffs Feint for single target damage, but that and Cheat Death all on the same talent row. Action Man, yeah, hope they make changes to how design boss encounters like communicating between teams. I would prefer it if... I knew you'd say that. I would prefer it if they also coordinated with class designers, because they seem to work in their own little bubbles as well. In order to make... You can't independently make the classes balanced. You've got to consider the content that's being done. And I don't care how much Blizzard argue that only so many people do the raid content. The raid content is the hardest PvE content, because only so many people... You can argue, okay, Mythic Plus Dungeons, because you can keep pushing. You will eventually get to the point where that sort of technically is harder. But the actual content itself at a particular level is not. So you have to... If you can balance them for raids, you've sort of balanced them for everything. Not PvP, of course, but PvP have their own talents with which they can monkey about with things. My issue with rogues, particularly as a paladin player, is, as I say, they have Cloak of Shadows, which grants them immunity from almost every ability for which an immunity will work, and it's on like a 1.5 minute cooldown. I have Bubble, which is supposed to give me complete immunity to abilities on a 5-minute cooldown, but it doesn't. There are things, the only thing that immunes me from that Cloak of Shadows doesn't is Hydra Shot. And probably the Shark as well, Crashing Waves. But with Crashing Waves, you just move out the way. In fact, as a rogue, you've got easier ways to get out of it. So you don't actually need your that on that. But Hydra Shot is the only thing that can kill a rogue that won't kill me at least once. But Cloak of Shadows, it's not just that it works as well with a third of the cooldown, it works better. Because, for example, Desolate Host with the Spear, I can immune the damage from the Spear, but not avoid getting knocked into the other realm. Whereas rogues with Cloak of Shadows can immune the damage and they don't get knocked into the other realm. So they just immune it and they're back on the boss again, no problem. Whereas with... And also they can probably do it the next time. Glavestorm spell damage, yeah. Almost everything that is very, very dangerous is spell damage. So that's why, like, Cloak of Shadows is at least as good as Bubble, like Divine Shield, in realistic situations. And it's got a much shorter cooldown. So, and then when you also consider that rogues have Feint, and you can then either give them Cheat Death or Leeching Poison, depending on the circumstances of the fight and which one's going to be most beneficial. You create a situation where rogues have got the best defensives in the game. Like Hunter's pretty good, but not as good as that because they've got Turtle longer cooldown, and again doesn't, and that's pretty good as well because aspects of the Turtle also generally works in all realistic situations where Bubble would, with it, but it stops you doing damage. Whereas Rogue's Cloak of Shadows doesn't stop them doing damage during the duration. If they didn't nerf the Divine Intervention talent, it would be better. It would, but bear in mind it would still be a much longer cooldown than Cloak of Shadows, and you need a talent to do it. It's not baseline. You know, it is galling because Paladins used to become, and still are. There's people will still say, if you sort of even put forward the idea that Paladins don't have great defensives, people will just scoff at it. Of course they do, because just Paladins have great defensives, without actually even looking at what we've actually got when it comes down to it. We don't have the worst defensives, but they are far from the best. Like, put it this way, the reason I am not that useful in Fallen Avatar is because my immunities can come in useful once in Phase 1 and once in Phase 2. That's it. Whereas there are some other classes, I'm not saying all, but there's some other classes that, I mean, Rogues, for example, can immune every single touch of Sargeras. Every single one. Which is why you want them on it. You don't need to do a rotation. The Glavestorm, like I said, I can't remember how often Glavestorm comes in. I strongly suspect that Rogues cannot just cloak everyone and YOLO it. That being said, I don't know whether Feint affects it, because obviously Feint baseline just does AoE damage, and I strongly suspect the Glavestorm is AoE damage because it doesn't target the rogue, but I think it is. So yeah, I mean, so that's why you load up on rogues. It's their utility, like, and it's not just Legion where this has been the case in WoD as well. Like Blackhand, for example, you used to take they just used to go around and clear up all the bombs on Blackhand on Mythic. I could do that once. Again, I could do it once. They could do it every time. And then in the last phase, when you were soaking the bombs, you know, again, I could do it once. And they could do it multiple times. They couldn't do it every time because they came too quickly, but they could do it a couple. If you did it first, and then they could do it third. So I've sort of started off as Paladins being the tanky DPS to now, not fragile, that would be silly calling it fragile, but nonetheless you are, you know, it is just annoying because it wouldn't be as bad if at least the immunity was an immunity. You know, if it actually was an immunity, and worked on all the same things that Cloak of Shadows does, then it would just be like, you'd have an argument then. I don't think it would still be a good argument, because as I say, you can't point to the fact, well, Divine Shield does physical damage as well, so that's why it's worth 3 times the cooldown, more than 3 times the cooldown, in fact. But there's so little physical damage there. But it's the fact that it doesn't even do it as well. It's like Cloak of Shadows. It's like, if give me the choice between Divine Shield and Cloak of Shadows, and I will take Cloak of Shadows. And so would everyone. No one would take, even on Mistress Sassine. Because even though Mistress Sassine is, you know, you have that Hydra shot, and the Hydra shot, yeah, again, if someone doesn't soak your Hydra shot, as a rogue, you will die. Well, you've got, actually, no, you've got cheat death, haven't you? That's the point. Yeah, you got cheat death, so bugger it. So no, yeah, you would absolutely take the rogue's defensives over the paladin's defensives. And then when you also consider movement, you know, movement is situational, isn't it? What would you rather have, Cavalier or Shadow Step? Shadow Step in some situations would be better. Cavalier in some situations would be better, wouldn't it? So that's maybe a bit of a, you know, situational thing. But in terms of the defensives, there's no argument. Everyone would love to have the rogue's defensives and swap it for their own. I can't think of any other class that would rather keep their own defensives if they could swap them with the rogue ones. So it's no wonder whenever I say cheat death, you know, the personal feint and Cloak of Shadows on the same row, talent row, that all the rogues go, no, shush, shh. Druid number 1. Well, you can go bear form, can't you? That does you a lot of good. But the issue with bear form is that it's, if you're DPS, that is, that it's significantly reducing your DPS while you do it. Now, it's good because it does mean that you can Bart skin as well, but even then, I would still, wouldn't you still rather have the rogue ones? Because the rogue ones, the only one where it can reduce their DPS, I suppose, is feints, because they have to use energy for it. And we have sometimes had our rogues die on something because they won't use the bloody energy on it. And it's like, well, how much damage are you doing now that you're dead? Yeah, bear form is really good, but it's not an immunity. It is really good, though. It does get you very close for a lot of abilities in reality. But, for example, you can't just go bear form. Although, actually, no, what did we have? Because when we were... Because we had a rogue who came on late yesterday. So, first of all, I was filling in on Avatar Progress. And our Feral Druid was having to do the soaking on Touch of Sargeras. And he was able to do it. And I don't know how, but it involved a legendary ring. So I suppose Feral Druids do have the possibility to do that. I imagine it was a combination of bear form and whatever this legendary ring does, because I don't know anything about Druids. But I'm still going to suggest that rogues get to use their stuff without a significant, if at all, DPS loss, and is therefore preferable. Even though druids, I will agree, have very good ones as well. But the ideal thing on soaking those Touch of Sargeras, of course, is rogues. Demon Hunters can do it. We've got a Demon Hunter that does it. And yes, okay, our Feral Druid could do it at a significant loss of DPS. And let me tell you, our Feral Druid does not like a significant loss of DPS. Is that what it is, Chris Sims? Well, there you go then. I know nothing about them. I knew that a legendary ring was involved. He was actually complaining as well, saying that he hasn't, you know, he'd just upgraded a different legendary as well, not that one. And I'm thinking, how are you still got legendaries that you're upgrading? Well, no one likes the loss of DPS, but what I mean is rogues get to do their survivability without a significant loss of DPS. But no, our Feral Druid in particular doesn't like it because he likes to go for his rank 1s, you see. He killed me on Mistress a couple of weeks ago going for one of his rotten rank 1s. I wasn't happy. I'm not going to forget it either until he dies. Next time he does the same thing, I'm just going to let him die. Instead of putting myself at risk. No, he's not. He's a very good player, don't get me wrong. He's a very good player. But he's like anyone else. He likes his... He's one of those Feral Druids that actually knows how to play Feral Druid very, very well. And as a result, he likes his DPS meters. But what he did, basically, is he had a Hydra shot on Mistress, and he wasn't moving out very far. He gave me like a tiny little... So I stuck myself in there, realising that there was a good chance I was going to get stunned because I'd hit another beam. But I thought, well, if I get stunned, it's not guaranteed to kill me. But if I don't soak, he is guaranteed to die. And therefore, we're likely to wipe. Now, at the last second, he did actually go out. But like literally for a second, I had no way of knowing he was going to do that. And I did get stunned and I did die. So in future, what I would do is I will adopt the understanding that anyone who tries to stay in melee range with their Hydra shot is going to move out in time, and I'm going to stand behind them. And if they don't, that's their own lookout. Is what I learnt from that experience. Because Mistress is, I mean, that's just a boss that's annoying me terribly at the moment. But at least we don't wipe on it for ages anymore. It dies relatively, it's relatively straightforward to kill now. It does, it sort of gets trickier in some ways with the extra damage, but obviously when you get to the last phase, it's so much easier and quicker. Maiden again, we'll hopefully, I mean, we'll have to see if we can clear, like last week, we almost got all of our farm bosses, all 7 bosses killed within the first 2 hours of the raid, in other words, before the break on the first night. And then, of course, our Demon Hunter decided to be a complete fool, a DPS whore, and killed us with the boss on like 0.1%. And then we ensued about an hour or so of wiping. So, you've not extended, have you? What's the point of extending when you can kill? Is it just because you think you might need a lucky pull and avatar still? Because the other bosses go down quite quickly, presumably, at your level. I mean, we can kill them in a couple of hours. I'm sure you can kill them quicker. That is the bomb fiasco incident indeed, yes. Well, you say, I mean, of course you have the gear to kill it, but you don't half give yourself a better margin for error when you've got more gear. But, you know, some people occasionally do this. But I don't see the value in it. Unless, of course, like if you're a 2-night guild or something like that, then time is really against you. But my argument is it doesn't take that long to learn a mechanic. And any boss only has so many mechanics on it. It doesn't take that long to learn a boss. So all that there is, it takes you maybe a few hours to learn any mechanics. Once you've learnt them, all it really is like some combination of you being able to do the mechanics to a certain level and getting through different phases. Like if you push phases a little bit more quickly, it can help. Obviously, I suppose sometimes you have to take DPS off, which you might do and kill Jaden. Then that sort of works against it. But I'm not particularly a fan of extending unless time is the factor. Like if you were going to think to yourself, we could kill it next week, and but we'll be pushed to it because we've only got a little bit of time. Or the only time we've ever extended and I agreed to it, I have been in guilds before where I've extended and I've not agreed to it, but when I have agreed to it was on Gul'dan, where we had a Fury warrior who was doing absolutely loads of damage to the eyes. He was basically beasting them down, and also to the parasites, and he wasn't going to be there on the last raid night, so we decided to extend because we thought we've only got him for a couple of days, we need to get this thing killed. In the end, we didn't kill it, and we killed it without him as well. So it was actually, in hindsight, pointless extending, because it didn't get us a quicker kill. But yeah. Well, it's one of these things. You can never say. You'll never know at the end of it whether it was the right decision or not. You just go with whatever you think is best, don't you? But I just think to myself, unless the issue is that Avatar might be still the sort of boss that could wipe you for a night, that the other bosses would die within about an hour and a half, a bit quicker if you were all focused. So you're not losing, unless you only like raid twice a week, you don't lose that much time. And you do potentially, because you know you'd feel terrible if you had like a 0.1% wipe. So in that case, I wouldn't understand it at all. You'd be doing it all. You'd be doing all the farm content within 2 hours. I would just. But that's what I would be thinking. How many guilds have killed Jaden now, by the way? Have a quick look. 91. Yeah, we missed out on jumping 100 places up by not killing Avatar yesterday. That was a cock-up. But again, you know, we're... Oh, I talk about, I'm like in the world. We tend to more focus on world ranks in Europe, I think, rather than region ranks. You don't very often hear people talking about EU ranks. But yeah, yeah, I mean, it's fair enough in a way, because of course you can only draw recruits from your region anyway. It's just one of those distinctions. The US tend to talk about US or NA ranks. In Europe, it tends to be just world ranks. People don't even. I don't even know what my EU rank is of my guild. Maiden skip this week, then extending next week on Kill Jaden. I mean, how? Well, I don't know. I don't know. It's not, as I say, it's not the sort of thing I would think. Because especially with time, even like in previous expansions, I would think, you know, for the time it takes. But with Titan forging being a thing, and of course relics, because you could easily, even with the same item level relic, get an upgrade via the Crucible. Yeah. Well, the problem is, of course, it's as I say, it's a risk either way, and you can almost never say whether it was a good idea or a bad idea. Like, as I say, the one time we extended this tier, it was a bad idea. We realise that now, but that was because it's very rare that you will ever find out whether it was or it wasn't. You can't really know, because you'll kill it in a certain amount of time. You might argue that you wouldn't have killed it any quicker. The only time you can be wrong is if it takes more than one reset of extending and you get a 0.1% wipe significantly before you kill it. Like if you get a 0.1% wipe and then kill it the same night, it really doesn't matter. But if you get a 0.1% wipe and then don't kill it until the following reset, then you will have definitely made a mistake. So that's the only time you can definitely say you've got it wrong. The only time you can definitely say you got it right is if you extend and you kill it in the same reset, but it's right at the end of the last raid of that reset. Any other time, it's like, maybe it was a good idea, maybe it wasn't. Can't really tell. Gordon Bennett. We've been going on for like 2.5 hours. I'll give it a usual thing. I don't just suddenly stop it, although that previous sudden stop was not my fault. I'll give it up in case there's any more last little statements or comments or anything like that. And then I'll probably close it to a close. No time to do another vlog tonight, but I need to get some more World Quest done at least. And then we've got to look ahead to our own avatar. It's really annoying, actually, that there has been a significant buff to us, which is effectively a nerf to a boss, when we're not quite ready yet again to take advantage of it. Have I looked at any of the flying threads on the North American forums? Yes, I did. I did at the weekend anyway. I haven't since the weekend because, you know, during the week now I am so busy with everything else. But I did look through them on the North American forums at the weekend. As I say, the one that attracted my attention, which I think was on Saturday, was one that was actually saying, oh, you know, someone who was actually in support of no flying on Argus. It has to be said that almost all of the replies were not supportive of the original poster. They weren't trolling him, though. They didn't do downvotes or anything, which was quite good, because that's what I was expecting. But I'm pleased to see that people at least were, you know, being mature about it and just politely disagreeing. Oops. Oh, you can't downvote anymore. I've forgotten about that. That'll explain it. All right, yeah, I've forgotten about that. That's true, isn't it? All makes sense now. There was me thinking everyone was being really mature and just, you know, disagreeing, but, you know, you're entitled to your opinion. No, it's because they can't. I don't think it's anything to do with NA. I think that's the internet the world over. Discord down. It wasn't. What is it? No, it's not. Discord's fine for me. I haven't got any channels unavailable. Seems okay to me. Although, for some reason, the welcome read first has got a new. Has it got a new post in it? It's flagged as having a new post. No, it hasn't. So that's weird. All the channels are showing new posts when not all of them have got them. So I don't know. Something funny's gone on there. Possibly, but it is all up at any rate. It's letting me read it, and I can see a string of private messages as well. Oh, there's one from you, Earth. There we go. But anyway, I think we've sort of come to an end there. That's lasted way longer than I expected. Yeah, that'll probably not work either. But I'll call it a day there. I'll be back on streaming some nonsense tomorrow. Hopefully our farm raid and then onto Mythic Avatar Progress. Hopefully not with me. Hopefully we're not going to be that desperate. But we shall see. But thanks for coming on. And until next time, I shall see you later.